Hi there, my name's Jo and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator from the UK. Today I'm going to show you a card that I recently made for a card swap, but it's also going to be my first Mashup Monday card. Now Mashup Monday I've come up with because often when I'm creating something I turn my hand to more than one stamp set. So on this occasion I've chosen the Gnome for the Holidays as my first chosen stamp set. Now this is a brand new stamp that's coming in the autumn winter catalogue, but when I was creating my project, which I will show you in a second, I also wanted to I wanted some greenery on it. So I had a look around at my stamp sets that I have, and I came up with the Peaceful Boughs stamp set, which was actually one from last year. So they actually worked really well together, and I came up with this card here. So as you can see, this is obviously the gnomes, and this is the greenery effect that I wanted to create. So the point of Mashup Monday is to try and encourage you and inspire you to look at your stamp collection as a whole rather than just a stamp set, because sometimes when you look at something you want to add something onto it, so you kind of look around and it's just trying to inspire people just to look at everything as a whole rather than trying to just concentrate on one set alone. So this is what I'm going to make with you today. I have done some of the elements just to make it a little bit quicker than watching me paint the whole thing. So I'm going to show you the different elements and how I made them, and then we'll go from there. So first thing I need is a card base. So I have gone for a thick Whisper White card base. So this measures 21 centimetres by 14.85 centimetres, and then it is scored at 10.5 and folded in half. So that's my card base. I then need a cherry cobbler layer. Now this one is a centimetre smaller than my card front. So it is 13.85 by 9.5 centimetres across. I then need a Whisper White layer, which is 9 centimetres across by 13.35 centimetres high. And then finally, I've used a little scrap. So as long as this is the same width as your Whisper White layer, which was 9 centimetres, I think mine's about 3.5 centimetres, but it doesn't matter if it's 4 centimetres. It's irrelevant really. Just as long as it's the same width as your Whisper White layer, then you're fine. Okay, so I'm going to be using my Whisper White layer and this little scrap piece first. So what I want to do, I'm just going to tear my Whisper White layer so that it looks a bit like a snowy hill. Okay, so I've just torn that off, and you can, if I bring the card in, you can see here exactly what it looks like. So each one would be different if you were making a series of them, because obviously your tears are going to be in different places, but that's absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to be using our shimmery white embossing paste. Now this is great for creating textures. You can use it with masks, or you can just use it directly onto your card. Now the reason I've chosen to do this on a separate piece is because I'm going to be sponging the background on this, and I just wanted it to remain separate so that it's easier to handle really. So I'm going to open my pot of paste. Now this is great, and it does last quite a long while, but you have to make sure that you seal it very, very well, otherwise it will dry. So I'm just going to take one of our palette knives and pick up some of the paste, and I'm literally going to just wipe it across this white piece here. So imagine you're icing a cake, and I'm just going to move it around until I've covered the white piece, and also that it's the texture I want, the thickness I want. I would say don't make it too thick, but you just want enough just to add that texture to it. And then you can use your knife to sort of rough it up a little bit, just so it looks a bit snowy. And then we're going to pop that to one side to dry. Now it doesn't take too long to dry, but you just need to be careful obviously to let it dry thoroughly. So I'm going to pop it out of the way for a moment. Now what will happen is that the card will begin to curl slightly. So all I recommend is that when it starts to curl, if you just gently manipulate it with your fingers, it will enable it to lay completely flat. And also what you can do is once it starts drying and it's touch dry, you can weight it down with a block or something if you feel it's necessary. I didn't weight mine down, I just literally manipulated it until I was quite happy where it was. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is create this blue background here. So for this I have used a bit stray paste there. So for this I've used Balmy Blue ink. So it's quite a nice blue, and I've also used one of our sponge brayers. Again, these are brilliant for creating really nice backgrounds in, you can use different shades or you can just use one colour like I'm using here. So what I'm going to do is to first of all ink my roller. So what you need to do when you're inking these is not to do this, because what happens is then you only ink sort of about an inch or so of your roller. So when you're inking, just roll it in one direction. So by doing that, you're picking up ink all over your roller, and then it's going to actually spread a lot better. So I'm going to work on here. I've got a glass mat, so I'm happy to work straight on here, and then I'll give it a quick wipe afterwards. So what I'm going to do is just to start a little bit off my page, and I'm just literally just rolling it backwards and forwards across the page. Now as you can see, the colour starts deepening the more layers you lay down on it. So I've done that there. I'm going to re-ink it, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing, and I'm going to keep doing this until such time as I reach the depth of colour that I want to reach. Now you notice I'm not doing that last inch or so. That's because that's where my glimmery piece is going to be, but also I want it to be more of a natural sort of background really. So again, just adding some more onto there. And you can add as much or as little as you want. And if you wanted to add additional colours, you could add some more colours just to blend them. These sponge rollers are absolutely brilliant for it. I tend to have 2 or 3 sets of these, which are I keep in a jar. They wash up beautifully, although they obviously stain from the ink. They do wash up nice, so you can use them with different colours once they've been washed. And then finally, I'm just going to re-ink that again, and I'm just going to do it a little bit in the opposite direction, and then stop when I'm happy with my depth of colour. Now I'm quite happy with that, so nice and quick and easy. So for the first part I want to do is to do this greenery in the background here. So as I say, I used the Peaceful Boughs stamp, and I used this one here. So I tried initially with this one, but it was a little bit too large, so I went for this one here, and I'm going to stamp that in our shaded spruce. So it's a nice vibrant green, but it's sort of it gives a nice sort of fern effect, which is what I wanted to achieve. So I'm just going to ink it up. Okay, and I'm going to stamp it just off the edge there, so it's in this top corner just off the edge. Okay, I'm going to re-ink it again, and I'm going to add another one sort of here. So you can add as much or as little as you want. I've added it a very slightly different position for this one, but it's entirely up to you. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so now that's done, what I'm going to do is to take some stamping blends. So for this I have used shaded spruce in light and dark. I've used soft suede in light and dark, but I have also used an early espresso marker. Now that was purely just to add a little bit of shadow towards the bottom of my branches. I don't know how well that shows up on the camera, but it just gives it an extra depth really. So I'm going to colour these in. So first of all, I'm going to start with the branches themselves, and then I'll move on to the actual leaves. So first of all, I took the dark soft suede, and I'm just going to colour over where the branch is. Now what I did do, because I've obviously stamped this in shaded spruce, I went over those lines, so it hides them completely underneath the actual soft suede. I'm then going to take the light soft suede and just blend this through a little bit. Add a little bit more dark if I feel I need a little bit more dark. Just blend them together nicely. Okay. And then finally I took the fine end of the early espresso marker, and what I did was I just added some dark accents just to the bottom of the branch. So it just adds a little bit of depth really to your branch. And then I'm just going to add some dark right next to it just so it all blends together nicely. Okay, I'm going to go off to this edge here because there's a bit more branch here. You can just add as much colour as you want to really, just to sort of blend it all through. Okay, I'm going to do the same with this one here. I'm starting off with my dark. And then going to add a little bit of light. Just trying to go over where that shaded spruce colour is. And then going to add some early espresso. And then again, just a little bit more dark just to blend that through. Okay, so that's my branches done. So it's nice and simple. So then I'm going to move on to the shaded spruce colour here. Just quickly wipe that off my desk just to try and keep it as clean as I can. Okay, so that's that. Now with the shaded spruce, I'm going to start with the dark, and again it's quite quick. You just want to go over all of your fern type, I don't know what you'd call them, spines I guess. So I'm just like the first sort of 2/3 or so of each one, I'm just using the dark shaded spruce, and then I'm going to take my light one and I'm just going to finish that to the ends, just so it gives a bit of a tonal colour on it rather than just being like a flat dark green. It's very subtle, so you can't really see it. So I'm just going to repeat that with all of my spines. Okay, so you can see now that I've completed all the greenery at the top. It was very quick. It's just to actually, you know, add a bit of depth to it really. So that's all done. And now I can bring back in my piece of paper that I actually put the shimmery paste onto. That is still a little bit tacky, but it is almost dry, so I'm quite happy now. I'm just going to glue that to the bottom of my piece here, and I'm just using Tombow, but you could use, if you wanted to, something like our dimensional pads if you wanted to add a little bit more depth to it. I chose not to because I've put my characters onto dimensionals, and I want it still to be able to go into like a normal size envelope really. So stick that down. I'm just going to turn it over to the back just to check whether I have got any sort of rough edges of the paste, because sometimes you get some rough edges. There are a little bit, but I'm not too worried about them. I think it's looking quite nice it looks like it should do really. So that part is done. So now we've got our characters. Now I have pre-done these just to speed things up a little bit, but I will talk you through them, how they're done. So I stamped first of all the characters in Memento ink onto Whisper White cardstock. I then used Stampin' Blends to colour them. So if I start with this one here, I used Shaded Spruce for the mistletoe and for part of the bauble here. I used Misty Moonlight for the blue, which is the hat and the shoes or socks. I'm not quite sure. I haven't made my mind up about those. I've used Cherry Cobbler for the his outfit and also the bow on the mistletoe. Petal Pink for his face and nose, and then I have added a little bit of grey granite to his beard just to give it a little bit of depth and a little bit of shadow, and I actually softened the edges of that with the colour lifter. So that's him, and then this is her. So again, I've used all the same colours exactly. So it's Misty Moonlight, Mango Medley. Sorry, I forgot to explain that. It's Mango Medley on that one. So Misty Moonlight, Mango Medley, Cherry Cobbler, and then Shaded Spruce, Petal Pink for the face, and then I've used the soft suede for her hair. So I hope that explains that. I thought it was rather than you sit there and actually watch me paint those, I wanted those to be done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop dimensionals onto the back of these. I've chosen dimensionals for two reasons really. One, because I think it's nice to have them raised, but secondly, because this is raised, part of the body kind of needs to be raised to actually see where the dimension is. So he is going to sort of sit here, so I don't want dimensionals on this part of his body. I want them to be sort of from sort of here and up his hat. So I'm just going to pop some dimensionals on there. Now I've just used normal dimensionals, but you can of course buy the nice small ones. Okay, I think he'll be okay. And then the same on her. So I don't want any on the bottom half. I just want it on this top half of like where the Christmas tree hat is. So I'm going to peel the backs off those. And then I'm going to add some Tombow just to the bottom part. Can you see this is warping slightly? Don't worry too much. It will all sit down once it's all fully dry, so don't worry about that. So I'm just going to position him just about here. So obviously that part will sit down. Sometimes you have to give it a little gentle persuasion on to stick onto this glimmer paste, especially when it is a little bit tacky like this, but it will stick, and if it doesn't initially, then you can always go back and add some more. So I will leave him as he is, and then I'll go back if necessary. So I'm going to do the same with her. Just taking the backs off, I'm going to add some Tombow to the bottom part, and then I just want to position her sort of next to him really. I think he's going in for a kiss. So there we go. So that's the two characters. So now what I'm going to do is to mount everything up onto my card base. So I have my cherry cobbler layer here. I'm trying to stick down first. So I just want to line that up, make sure that everything's stuck well. This is what I meant by the rugged edges here, but I actually quite like that because it looks like snow, so I'm happy to leave that there. And then going to add glue to my cherry cobbler piece and stick that onto my card front. To say, this has warped a little bit just where it's not quite dry, so I'm just going to sort of persevere. It will stick down. Normally if I was making this for a non-demonstration, I would have done it first of all, and I would have let everything dry completely before putting it together. So that's that part. So now all I want to do is to make my greeting and also just to add a few gems. So I have used the greeting from the Gnome for the Holidays stamp set, and it's this one here, Holly Jolly Everything. I thought it was quite a nice cheerful sort of greeting. So I'm using a Versamark ink pad, and then I'm going to be using white embossing powder, and I'm just going to be doing that onto a scrap of cherry cobbler. So I am just going to take, it's quite warm here today, so I am just going to take my dust buddy just to make sure that I don't get any ink where I don't want it. And to stamp my greeting, I'm not worried about lining it up because I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to take a scrap of paper just to collect my powder. That's it. So I've not got any powder where I don't want it. Let's pop that away. And then I'm just going to quickly heat that just to set it. There we go. So I'm just going to trim that off there. So if you're not keen on fussy cutting, you could actually just cut this out as a banner or something, whatever you want really. But I quite like the effect that seems to be very popular at the moment, where you sort of roughly cut round all the letters just to give it a nice border. The trick to doing this is to move quickly, and don't move your scissors, but move the actual card itself. So if you watch me as I'm cutting, I'm actually moving the card with this hand, and my scissors are remaining mainly still. I only really move them to open and close the blades. There we go, so that's done. I'm just going to add some dimensionals also to the back of that. Problem when you've got long nails, they tend to stick to your nails. Okay, and I just want to position this wherever I want to, really, because I want to not cover too much of the greenery. So if I bring the original one in, I was sort of trying to position it sort of where I could, really. So now that's done, finally all I want to do is add a few of our little gems to this. So again, position these wherever you have got gaps, really, because your gaps might be in a slightly different place to mine. So there we go. So that concludes our first Mashup Monday. I hope you liked it. As I say, I'm hoping to do these on a weekly basis so that we can, you know, get a little bit of a sort of collection of them. And I'm either going to be incorporating 2 or more stamp sets, or it might be 2 or more products. It might just be that I steal the greeting from one stamp set and use a different stamp set for my elements. It will just progress as we go, really. So hopefully you've enjoyed that and you'll give it a go. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.